additions, modifications to the agenda?
I have a couple of items. One, there will be a neighborhood meeting for residents along Stevens Avenue for the construction projects that are going on. And this is to give them a chance to find out about how the project will unfold and answer any questions they may have. And that meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 7th, a week from this Wednesday, at 6 p.m. here at City Hall, following the same format pretty much that we did for those along Ferry Street earlier. There will be a further meeting like such as this for people from the Brooklyn area. That'll be later in the summer because you just get so many and it takes so long to answer all the questions. We want to make them germane to the amount of work that will get done in the next few months. So we'd like to have a couple council members or a member, at least, and the mayor here for the meeting if we could, Wednesday, April 7th at 6 o'clock, and I'll let you decide. We should make sure that, maybe Robert's going to be here anyway because his property is impacted by that project. Then the second item is as I noted to the mayor, the Tri-County Electric Co-op has their annual meeting, and that's coming up on April 14th. And the annual meeting allows us 2 votes to vote for whatever actions take place at the floor. And one of the actions they're alerting us to is that there are candidates running for the seats of Board of Directors. And so somehow we'll need to decide how to cast those 2 votes in that election if we choose to attend the meeting and be represented. So I leave that to your discretion. And the third item under the my staff report, I'd like to just talk briefly about some new information that surfaced with the village water purchase situation.
Yeah, that'll be it.
That's it.
And you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Number 3, approval of minutes. None. Number 4, appearance of interested citizens. I'd like to take this moment to thank everybody for coming here this evening. We can put that off until the public comment. I assume we're all here for the same reason.
Unless, I think this particular subdivision is for those who find something on the agenda that they will not have an opportunity to speak to, and because it's a public hearing, those who are here for the library would have that opportunity. But there may be other subjects that are here that we're not aware of.
So, anyone? All right, with that we will move on to number 5, notices, communications, announcements. We've pretty much covered that. Yeah. 6, consent agenda, none. 7, public hearing. Consideration for receiving public comment regarding the city's potential issuance of general obligation capital improvement plan bonds and the proposed adoption of a capital improvement plan. Prior to receiving the public comment and input, it may be appropriate to begin with the background reports from representatives of both our financial advisor and the Rushford Public Library. And how do you go on from here?
We have Mr. Mike Bubani with us tonight. He's an associate of the David Brown Associates. He does our capital improvement planning as well as helps us sell bonds. And he has worked with us over the past years, particularly this last year, in doing our capital improvement planning that allowed the community to move forward with the public improvements to the utilities. And Mr. Bubani has been instrumental in drafting up the required capital improvement plan for this particular project, and is here tonight to explain that to the council as well as to the public. And then he, I believe, would also like to address briefly his prior document, the capital financial planning summary that he had done, the full plan that I believe, Kathy, you have copies for each of the members. And he'd like to just discuss a little bit about that to help you feel more comfortable about where the community is in terms of its finances. So, Mr. Bubani.
Thank you. Good evening. If it's all right, Mayor, I'll just stand here. That way I can address the crowd as well. it is a public hearing tonight to authorize a capital improvement plan, but I wanted to talk about two different documents because there could be some confusion. The public hearing is about this capital improvement plan noted as a bond supplement. But just last fall, we approved a capital financial plan, sometimes referred to as a capital improvement plan. Why do we have two plans? The main difference is the one we're talking about tonight in this public hearing, if you read it closely and look at what's in there, not much of a plan. It talks about the library project, some factors that were considered going into the potential library project, funding sources and so forth. The purpose of this quote-unquote plan is simply to provide us statutory authority to borrow money if we choose to do so, okay? It's not really much of a plan, it's more of a legal document, because cities cannot just simply stroll into the bank and get a loan. You have to issue your debt as a bond or a note. And you always have to cite which chapter and verse of state statutes you're using to issue that bond or note. Well, the type of bonds you would be considering here are called capital improvement plan bonds, and the process required before you can do that is to hold a public hearing, adopt a document like this that has several items that are considered in it, and then after which time you don't need to approve immediately whether you're going to move forward or not, but you have 12 months from the public hearing tonight to take advantage of this authority if you should choose to do so. If you choose not to, 12 months pass by and you want to issue this type of bonds, let's say next year, you'd have to rehold this hearing and adopt a similar document. So this is not a committing document. It simply is giving you the broad authority to issue or to borrow money if you choose to do so. This other document we approved last fall, I believe, is a useful tool and guide, which we'll go over maybe at the end of the public hearing, which we use to try to measure financial impacts of the projects that got approved last fall, okay, and some coming up in the future as well. So I'll set this one down for now and just address this plan here. There's some limitations on what you can do to borrow money under this authority. The first one is on page 1 of the plan, and basically says whatever terms that you use, the payment structure that you use, there's a limitation on the annual payment. You cannot exceed it, and it's a percentage of your taxable market value. So when you go to borrow money for the library project, if you do so, the annual payment can't exceed that $137,000 listed there. Follow? Now, we've only got one project considered in this plan. So if we have 2 or 3 different projects that we want to borrow money for under this authority, all of those payments combined have to fall under that $137,000. Now at this point, it looks like if the city is going to move forward and borrow money, if it does so, it will do through the United States Department of Ag, okay? Because they can give you a term and a rate that selling traditional bonds, cannot match, okay? They can go up to 40 years, and I believe the interest rate's 4 1/4.
4 1/8.
Okay. Which is much better than you could do through a standard bond issue. And the paragraph below says if that's the case, you know, we're looking somewhere between $95,000 and $100,000 a year below that statutory limit. The other limitation, which does not apply to Rushford because of your population, but if you were over 2,500, this would count against net debt, which is a statute that says cities can only borrow certain types of debt, 3% of your market value. That million, that's $2.5 million. Okay. You do have a little bit of debt already with USDA that counts against that small amount,